What do you think of this music? A little creepy? Kind of has a good line. All right, Sunday, baby. Hello. All right, here we go. I'm not feeling this song. What do you think? What do you think? Okay, we're going to talk about Eckhart Tolle. You're like, what? A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. We're also going to be talking about, this is my favorite book in the whole wide world. You can see how much I've read it. Look, it's falling apart. Thaddeus Golas, dude. Thaddeus Golas. You know, okay, let me give you a little Fibonojji on this here. Basically, this is my favorite book. Like, literally, like, just, dude, pick this up. You may have to go to Amazon. You know, buy 10 of them. Buy 5 of them. See, it's falling apart. That's how much I read this book. It's called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment. Basically, it's a guy that just dropped some acid in San Francisco and was kind enough to say, hey, dude, let's just write some of this shit down. And a lot of the psychedelic realm, a lot of people like, psychedelic? I don't even like those shirts. And you're like, okay, it's not, sometimes like, and then there's the other side, and there's wisdom there, and we got to bring it back, and sometimes we'll write books about it. Here we go, Eckhart Tolle. All right, here we go. So we're going to talk about a theme. One of the ways that I discern truth, you know, and keep in mind I'm also a Jesus, and so I could easily show you my Bible or scriptures, and we could talk about, you know, all kinds of things. But one of the ways that I discern, this is the book of Psalms, by the way, Psalms 91, you know, I always go back to there. So here I am. That's me in a nutshell, or that's one of the things that I like to do is in my spiritual practice, I like to read good things. And I think it's called, what do you call that? Broadening the mind. What do you call that? Once the mind, what's that quote? It says something about once the mind grows, it can never go back to its original form. You know, it says renew the mind. It says guard the heart, but renew the mind. Anyway, what are you talking about? Just give me something really easy to understand, like a fucking Kardashian. Dude, just make it easy. Can we talk about Tanzila a bit? All right. Okay, here we go. One of the things that I like to do is I like to find common denominators. And a lot of times truth is truth, and you'll hear the same things in different ways, but different people have a different way of spinning it. And, you know, you might get something from Eckhart Tolle that maybe you like, because this guy was so fucking brilliant that he said in one sentence, but then Eckhart Tolle, you know, took a time to expand on, and then maybe you'll read some Course in Miracles, and maybe, like, I get it. All right, so here we go. Here's a theme. In this music, I'm just not feeling this music. Let's go here. What do you think? What do you think? Let's go here. Oh yeah, baby. Here we go. Here we go. Here's a theme out of Golas, baby. It says no resistance. Very, very important. It says on the space level, like attracts like. You're like attracts like? I think I've heard that before. Well, just basically look around the people you talk to. Look at your family, look at your structure, look at the people that are holding your world together. And you're like, I hate them. Well, that's because you're like them. Like attracts like. I mean, you know, that's the thing. Like if Fibonojji were to come in and hang out with your group, what would happen? You're like, I don't know, it'd be really weird because you guys would not want to talk about football incessantly. Like, well, that's why. Because like attracts like. There's a reason why you're hanging out with people you hang out with. Look at, you know, in fact, just watch your phone. Like, who's texting you? Like attracts like, baby. That's Golas, baby. All right, we're going to talk about non-resistance. And, you know, Golas was the one that first kind of put that on my radar, like non-resistance. I mean, even the Bible says don't resist evil. The Bible says don't resist evil. So, you know, what's this resisting evil, and what does it look like? And, you know, and this is Eckhart Tolle's, and he's talking about learning how to literally be with things without resisting them. And sometimes you have to use like a synonym. At least I do. For example, like, let's just read here. It says, you know, he's talking about, he's helping this lady, and she comes in, and she's having these just, you know, she's basically coming in for therapy. And he says the moment she put her attention on something without trying to resist it, change it. And let me just read, this is so good, because this is about non-resistance, and we can learn those two words, but it's learning how to practice those in real life. And, you know, even with my, I call it ocean yoga. I'll walk the ocean, I'll walk the beaches, and I'll find a kind of a private beach, and, you know, I'll just find myself doing yoga, and maybe somebody will kind of come up, and I'll feel a little uncomfortable, like, dude, here I'm doing, like, you know, warrior pose in the fucking Pacific, And my first response is I want to change myself, maybe where I'm not doing Osho yoga. Maybe, you know, it's in learning how to just sit there and stay in warrior pose even around somebody. Like, dude, this is my private fucking beach. Well, it's not really my beach, but you know what I'm saying. So it's interesting how we'll resist things. You know, we'll want to change things. It says, the moment she put her attention on it directly without trying to resist it, it can no longer control her thinking. And so become mixed up with the mentally constructed story as the unhappy me. Now think about it and practice that. Just, you know, sometime today, practice holding something without trying to resist it, without trying to change it, debate it, argue it. Just let it be. Let it be what it is. You know, there's even things in my own story where, you know, learning how to let people be exactly who the fuck they are. And to not put the Fibonojji spin on it of like, because I really get caught up on one of the ways that I kind of fuck up a lot is for example, if somebody's title, sometimes I'll lean a lot on somebody's title. Like for example, you know, let me tell you a quick Fibonacci story, and we can talk about resistance and how I you know, how when I was younger, I did not practice non-resistance. I was full of resistance. Let's see here, where do I want to go? Talking about, he even goes and he says, you know, sometimes whenever we just sit and we're still, you know, the Bible says be no and still. Sometimes, you know, the voices that come up, it says, you know, no, I don't want to accept this. You have to ask, who doesn't want to accept this? Is this the you, the Jonathan, or is this something else, a resistance voice? And sometimes the resistance voice is always about non-acceptance. So we can approach resistance with learning how to accept, or we can, if you're more negative, which I think I tend to be, we can focus more on non-resistance. We're going to end up at the same place. Acceptance and non-resistance are synonyms. The reason why I have 417, if you go in the big book, which is a very, very important book in my personal history, just because I've struggled a lot with codependence and, you know, being in relationships with addicts and things like that. Page 417 talks about the power of acceptance. So there you go. There's a lot of stuff I'm throwing at you in these videos. Page 417 of the big book, some Golas, talking about there's sometimes people will speak in your head that aren't even you. It may be an ego's voice. It could be like it could be a distant relative. Maybe it could be your child self, you know. Let me kind of end this on a story about one way that I resisted something. When I was in college, I was that guy, you know, I got married way too young. And, you know, when you get married way too young, you know, you marry a person who, anyway, long story short, I had to work a lot. My ex-wife was one of those that she was, this is more about me than her, but so I was working 2 jobs. And so I was going to school full-time, I was working full-time, and in fact, I was the guy that literally petitioned his university. I wanted to take 24 credit hours while working full-time, because that's just the role that I've always played in my relationships. That guy is who I've always have chosen to be unconsciously, is the guy that worked his fucking ass off, took 24 hours, helped people go through school. And by the way, my ex-wife never even used her degree for 10 years after that. It's one of the reasons why we divorced. You can kind of understand how I got into the Coda rooms with that story. So here we go. So I'm a college senior and I really just need to get a job. So I go into my college placement guy, and you know, and here I am working full time, and I'm trying to help. His job, his title is to help me or help other students get jobs once they drop $40,000 for their fucking degree. So in my world, his job is to help students get professional jobs. I mean, his title was literally that. So I walk in, and for him, that wasn't the way he saw his job. He saw his job as this was a 9-to-5 gig that kind of got him through until he retired and collected a pension. So he didn't really give a fuck about the students. His job was just to kind of hold down a chair. So here I am taking 24 hours deep into codependence, deep into unconsciousness. So guess what we had? We had conflict. Because I'm like, why aren't you helping me? Like, who do you know? Like, you know, his job was supposed to kind of work with the alumni to kind of help plug graduates with alumni. Of course, he was doing none of that shit. So here I come in, and I have my expectations of how he needs to be, and he has his expectation of how I should be, and we had conflict, and I probably told him to go fuck himself, or he probably told me to go fuck himself. And ironically, my ex-wife would probably tell you that story where I'm the bad guy. And I'm like, no, I was really taking 24 credit hours, working full-time, trying to find maybe a third job to support all of us while you didn't work at all. I was that guy. Okay, so how do we tie page 417, Golas, non-resistance? Well, one, if I would have practiced a meditative life earlier, number one, I would never have made a lot of those decisions that put me in that place. I would have been more into relationships that were, you know, reciprocal and loving and more supportive. It wouldn't have been, you know, 98% Jonathan, 1% her. But see, I made those decisions because I was not living a meditative life, and my life was full of resistance. What I now know at 40 when I revisit that story is like, John, accept what this guy is showing you. Maya Angelou says, when people show you who they are, just believe them. Accept that this guy is just showing you this is just a gig to him, and accept that, sink into what is, and then what are you going to do? But I didn't practice that. I had conflict with him. I came home, had conflict with my ex-wife. I had conflict with myself. And then I went to church, and they gave me sermons like, shouldn't you just be nicer, John? And when you wear your khakis, could you just be sweeter? I'm like, dude, it's hard to be sweet when you're 24 and I'm not even 24 hours and 2 jobs. And they're like, you think you have some, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I have a problem. It's called the problem is I have an addiction to not accepting things. And slowly, I moved into the recovery rooms. And they started talking about the power of acceptance. And I, of course, fought that idea because for me, acceptance meant surrendering to bullshit, surrendering to dishonesty, surrendering to bad religion. But you know what acceptance really is? Acceptance says, hey, it is what it is. Now what am I going to do? What am I going to do? How do I choose to, what am I going to do with this person who clearly doesn't, what am I going to do? What am I going to, and you put the power back in your own lap and you stay at peace. You say, okay, what am I going to do? You know, yeah, John, you're married to someone that will watch you take 24 hours and work 2 jobs and not even use your, what are you going to do with that, John? Are you going to be honest with that? Are you going to resist it? So let me just put on your radar 2 words, common denominators in the Bible. Tolle talks about it. Golas talks about it. 2 words, non-resistance. Man, it's so hard to practice, dude, because when you decide to get honest, rigorously honest, shit changes. Shit changes. And that's what we really deeply want, and that's what we're really deeply afraid of. You guys have a great day. Email me, markcomfort17@gmail.com.